We are joined by one of our favorites, MLB on Fox, senior writer at The Athletic, MLB Network insider. If he wasn't doing enough, he is Ken Rosenthal joining us here on Tim and Sid. Welcome back to the show, Ken. How you feeling? How you doing?
I'm feeling well, guys. Hope everyone there is well, as in addition to me being well. I didn't say that too well, but anyway.
Understood.
A lot of wells there, Kenny.
Understood. We all care for each other, and we want each other to be well. I think that's what the synopsis is. We were just talking.
Point, yes.
Yeah, we were just talking about the difficulties in the MLS's restart. I know that Major League Baseball had their struggles with testing. How much did that struggle, or did those struggles, upset an already precarious relationship between owners and players?
I don't know that the current testing problems are a problem between owners and players, Tim. It seems to me it's more a problem of just getting this done in this environment. And keep in mind, all of these protocols and all the procedures were agreed upon by both the union and Major League Baseball. It's a joint effort in that sense. So ideally, yes, the union is going to protect the players, seek to protect the players, but it's the clubs that have been canceling workouts, not the union. And really, if anything, the friction that we've seen in recent days is between the clubs and Major League Baseball about how the testing has gone. So it's not a good situation right now, or at least it hasn't been. And in the moment, in this snapshot of time, it's difficult to ascertain whether this is just a normal difficulty in any startup of an undertaking this large, or if there are really fundamental problems that are going to persist. And if that's the case, then the sport is going to have a difficult time.
Kenny, we've seen some guys in baseball opt out of this thing, David Bryce over the weekend being one of the real big names. In basketball, a few players have. But my point is, in the NBA, unless LeBron opts out, it's not really going to move the needle. Do you feel there is a player? If Mike Trout says to heck with this, if Bryce Harper says no way, will that send alarm bells off in baseball, or does it just go business as usual?
Ross, that's an excellent question, and I don't know that Mike Trout alone would do it, or even Mike Trout in combination with other named players but not superstars, guys like David Bryce. But if there were a number of players at the highest level, let's just pick some names, right? Trout, Verlander, Harper, Nelson Cruz, just throwing four names out there. The guys at that level, and if there were, in addition to those, a number of other players who opted out, at some point the product becomes a consideration. Now, it would be Major League Baseball, but it wouldn't be perhaps the Major League Baseball that the networks want to show and the fans want to see. It would be some... So, yeah, that is an issue here. And keep in mind, a player out at any time. These questions are not going away. And I thought it was really interesting yesterday to hear Nick Markakis of the Braves, say that he essentially opted out after talking with Freddie Freeman, who has been quite ill with coronavirus, and determining that this just isn't for him. Now, there were other factors as well, and he mentioned them, but that could lead to maybe a greater number of opt-outs. If a couple of players really get sick, and another player, Scott Kingery of the Phillies, spoke of his time being ill today. So it is definitely a concern that enough players and enough quality players will opt out where you kind of wonder what is the point.
Ken Rosenthal, MLB on Fox, senior writer at The Athletic and MLB Network insider, joining us here on Tim and Sid with Arash Madani. Kenny, is there a plan B? If a team has an outbreak like we're seeing in the MLS, is there a plan B for Major League Baseball?
I don't know. And if a team has an outbreak, it's going to cause a real problem, because you're going to have a situation where it's not just one team affected, it's the team that they're playing as well, the opponent, that will be affected because that team can now play. So could that shut down the league? I'm not sure. And keep in mind as well, you have a 60-man roster. And if 10 guys were lost, you can conceivably replace them. Now, I don't know if the team is going to feel so good about playing at that point, which is another question. Does the team just say, we're not doing this, period? And it's out of MLB's hands in a sense. These are all questions that we don't know the answers to. And it's interesting, guys, in reporting this and talking with my colleagues at The Athletic, Jason Stark, of course, the Spink Award winner, the great writer that we have. Whenever I talk to him, he starts peppering me with more questions and raising more questions. Jason's mind works like that. He's brilliant. And that's the issue here, that there are so many questions and we don't have the answers to them. And it's kind of a day-to-day proposition. I do know the sport's going to need to be flexible to get through this. And that means flexible in scheduling, flexible in virtually everything it does. And even then, it might be too much to overcome.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Kenny, I was speaking a couple of months ago with an executive, with a team executive, and they said, for every answer that is being given to me, I have 10 questions to that answer.
Yes.
And so much has to do with logistics, and so much has to do with scenario planning, and so much has to do with what if this goes wrong. And at that point, the opt-out thought wasn't on anybody's mind. That wasn't front of mind. So let's just say that this season goes, and there may be an interruption or two, but let's even say this goes. I would have had the Dodgers out at LA as my World Series favorite, but now with David Price out, I have a couple of questions about their pitching rotation. How do you make sense of what, from a baseball standpoint, 60 games means through all of this?
Arash, in a perfect world, assuming we can get through it, I would say this is going to be a blast. It's going to be unique. The sport, of course, is a 6-month grind in the regular season, and that's what makes it so unique. You play every day. You play every day for 6 months. 30 different reality shows unfolding before our eyes. This is not a marathon that we're talking about. Now it's a sprint.
It's a pennant race, Kenny. It's a pennant race from the beginning.
Well, basically, it's August 1st starting at 0-0. That's essentially what was going on here. So, to be perfectly honest, Arash, I have not even thought that much about the baseball element of it, because there are so many other things that are going on and so many other things to write about, rather than, for instance, assessing the Blue Jays' chances or the Dodgers' chances or the Yankees' chances. Hopefully, in time, those will be really important questions to answer for us. But right now, it's just not that way. I mean, I posted 3 stories today. None of them had to do with actual baseball outcomes, the sport itself. One was about this Nashville minor league that is forming, a 2-team minor league. They're going to have, for basically guys have been released, AAA types in their 30s that are going to be hanging there and playing, hoping that some team picks them up if they get hit by the virus. That's essentially why they'll be there. And then I wrote about Joe West. I'm sure a lot of people saw that, his comments about him wanting to work again. And then finally, I just posted a story about the Braves team name and its future. So I'm a baseball writer. I don't know that I've been writing directly about baseball very much in the past few months, but that's where we are now.
Ken Rosenthal here on Tim said, well, you can't bring up Joe West because that was my next question. And some folks have wondered aloud about the umpires and all this. You didn't wonder. You talked to Joe West. He gave you some interesting quotes. What was the feeling from him? And were you surprised at the feeling that you got from him?
First of all, we all know that Joe is a maverick, an independent thinker. No one tells him what to do. He has his own way of looking at the world. That's part of what makes him special. And I know fans have very strong feelings about him, but the guy has umpired longer than anyone in history, 42 years. Going to this season, he's going to end up most likely with the most games umpired, regular season games, in history as well. So he's a survivor. He's been around, seen it all, done it all. When I called him, I had heard that he had chosen not to opt out, even though he was high risk. And I thought, well, Joe's an interesting guy. Let me call him up and see what he says. That was exactly my motivation. And, of course, one of the things he said is that he doesn't believe the virus is all that it's made out to be, that some of the deaths are caused by other things, etc. And we added a line in that, at the suggestion of my editor, actually, the editor said, hey, you just can't let someone say that without countering that goes against what we know from science. There are, however, a lot of people in the United States, I can't speak for Canada, I do know in the United States there are a lot of people who have their doubts about the virus, even with all the evidence in front of their eyes. So his point of view, while certainly I don't believe to be intellectually correct, and certainly not what some people would say is scientifically correct, it is a point of view that is not exclusive to Joe West. So anyway, the story was about just him wanting to keep going. He's 65 games short of the all-time record held by Bill Clem. Won't get there this season, even if we play it to completion, but he would get there by early next season. He's 67. He had a little bit of high blood pressure that they addressed in spring training with some medication. Says he's healthy, says he lost 25 pounds, says he's good to go. But we're in a situation where a number of the umpires, I don't know how many, but a number, are considered high risk, whether it's for age, whether it's due to their medical history, their body mass index, which is something that the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention advises has to be at a certain level to stay low risk for the virus. So we could see a number of them indeed opt out with full pay and full service in the coming days. Joe West will not be one of them.
Ken Rosenthal joins us on Tim and Sid. Ken, let's talk a little bit about broadcasts. The way we're going to consume these games. For the national games, your colleague Joe Buck, who of course does football for Fox as well, said, the talk had been that they were going to pump in crowd noise and the rest. Have you gotten any sense on the national side of how Fox and MLB Network may go about presenting these games in front of no fans?
I actually have not. And I asked one of my bosses today at Fox, hey, am I going to be allowed to work my normal job, the job Arash you do often, working by the dugout? And we don't have an answer yet, which is not surprising to me. These are things that everybody's working through. Personally, I do want to do that job. These are going to be very unique games, and I feel I just want to be there. Now, granted, we all know there's risk involved, and you want to be as careful as possible. And who knows, Major League Baseball, Fox, both might just say, not worth it. We're not doing this. But at the same time, we don't really know how it's all going to play out. I've seen the Dodgers experiment with the crowd noise, and the report I saw said it was done just for television purposes, or will be done for television purposes. It does make sense, and I know that the guys in the booth benefit from crowd noise. It kind of is part of the whole thing, right? You elevate and you modulate depending on how the crowd's reacting. But it's going to be different for a guy like Joe Buck, for sure, who's going to be sitting in a studio calling a game, which is not something I don't believe he's done often in his career.
Ken Rosenthal here on Tim and Sid with Arash Madani. Before we let you go, Rosie, I got to ask you a question that has been on the tip of our tongues all day. National Chocolate Day. What is your go-to chocolate bar?
Tootsie Roll.
Oh, look at Rosie.
Not a chocolate bar. And then my second would be peanut butter cups.
There you go.
I love them both.
All right.
So, I mean, that's not Nestle's or Hershey's or Kit Kat, but that's the chocolate I eat. And I didn't know it was National Chocolate Day, and I'm going to go have a Tootsie Roll in celebration.
We just go. Let me see that Tootsie Roll. Appreciate you joining us as always. It's great to get your information, and we appreciate you. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, guys. Take care.